So I did a video yesterday on working with child and youth offenders. Um, and this person is asking me, and I talked about little children, including toddlers who also offend. This person is also asking me question, can the toddler offenders be saved, or is there no hope for them either? Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. And so a lot of I didn't work with little kids exclusively, like small, like infant children. I worked with them by proxy to the parent or the caregiver. So typically, a generic scenario that happens is like something happens with that child that's not supposed to happen. That child may offend upon another child. The authorities are then alerted and then go to the home of said child to investigate further. And then that's when they find out there's something a lot more sinister or severe that's going on in the home. And a lot of that may entail like, spousal abuse or spousal torture or just other things that may be discovered in the process of the home. And so, as a result of that, people are separated, and typically speaking, generally speaking, in my experience, children are usually kept with the mother. The mother then will seek shelter. They will take the mothers to shelter with said child, and the child is small enough, and they think that the child can be cared for by the mother. So I'm just giving you a little bit of background there. In my experience, when you have children this small, when I've seen it, I think a lot of it depends on the parent who then has custody or has access to them. Because a lot of times, from what I've seen, when parents are brought in, the child is usually trying to they usually try to keep the child with the mother. What I have seen that makes me a little bit more doubtful in this case is that there's been situations where the child continues to offend, so much so that sometimes you may have to relocate or call in other people to assist with this, so caseworkers and things like that. So you may have to contact other people if the child continues to offend while they're in the shelter. Um, what I have seen that is of concern is usually the parent who has custody of that child. Uh, when you're talking about a parent that's being significantly abused, which is the case for most of these that I've seen, uh, what I've seen them come in is they come in a dissociative state. That when people say like, just to put it so I can give you a picture, not to be disrespectful, the lights are on but nobody's home, and what that means is you have somebody that's like looking at you. They're looking through you, but they're not aware of what's happening. You could be having a conversation with them, and they sort of zone out, and they're not hearing, they're not listening. And the same thing happens when they're caring for their child. They're just kind of in a dissociative state even after they've been removed from traumatizing situations. So they're not in a position to necessarily look after their children, discipline their children, implement boundaries with their children, so much so that when the child acts out, that could be a triggering that can be a trigger for them, and so they space out because it takes them back to where they were. They've seen it before, from a lot of times from the man that they were with. And so, when their child is acting out violently or aggressively or even sexually, that is a trigger. And so other interventions are usually called in to assist when a parent is just so disconnected um, like that, when they can't care for themselves barely or their own child, even with like the resources within the shelters and things like that. You have to, so you may have to involve other people and may even have to re-involve authorities. And so sometimes, you know, there's not always a happy ending, especially when the system gets involved. Um, what I've seen with children who offend, a lot of times they become frequent flyers. And what that means is they'll be placed in a setting or in a home, and then they'll act out there, and then they'll get kicked out, and then they'll come back to the emergency group home or wherever they were housed, which is where I worked. I worked at an emergency group home crisis residential facility, and so they'll come back, and they'll just you just kind of see them circling back, a couple of days, a week or two, and here they come back, and sometimes when they come back, it's to stay for a long time because they can't be in another facility. So I think the interventions matter a lot. How many interventions people can have within a particular county that they reside in, because a lot of times you get people coming from out of state, and so there's other things that go along with like being out of state, such as insurance and things like that, establishing residence, um, but also the emotional state and the ability of the parent to actually parent when the parent is there. And sometimes, dissociative states like that, when people have been severely traumatized, that does not go away easily or quickly. Sometimes it may take years for people to come out of that. Unfortunately, just because of how bad it was and the things that they went through. I would also say another big factor is like how much support there is. A lot of times when you're dealing with abuse victims or survivors of torture, they either don't have support, meaning that their relationships with their family are severed, or it's been many years since they've talked to their family and that just the support is not there. But if you can have a good support system, I think the more support system, the better the support system. Um, a lot of times there can be a much better outcome, as well as like the interventions such as therapy and things like that, that really tackle those issues. So I hope that question, sorry, my throat is just acting up. I hope that answers your questions. Um, you know, these are really good questions. So be sure to like, share, comment, and follow and subscribe to my newsletter linked in my bio. Thanks so much. One other thing I will also add is making sure um, you can keep them out of the home or the situation where they offend. So if that behavior is closely monitored, and then they're kind of kept out of situations that cause for that cause that, as well as and this isn't necessarily always the case, away from like the offending parent. So if they're a lot of times they're mirroring what they see from an offending parent. So if there's interventions around that, and there's everybody is sort of mandated to do some form of treatment before the child is entrusted in their care. I think that can have a better outcome in some cases, but it's a slippery slope because there's a lot of dynamics that are involved. You have the system involved. You have parents that may have been abused. You have abuser parents. You have insurance benefits. There's just so many moving parts to it. So I hope that helps. It might be something I need to do more of a longer form video on.